So if you have something that you want to change in your community, really the first step is thinking about how am I going to organize myself and my friends and other people to work for change. And one possibility is to start your own group or start your own organization to work for change on that issue. But another possibility is to work with organizations that already exist. And social movement scholars agree that these pre-existing organizations are a really essential part of getting a movement off the ground. So one of the things that they can provide is resources for groups of people who maybe don't have a lot of access to resources, people who are marginalized in society. And you can work with organizations, you can work with them to meet in their buildings, to borrow some of their financial resources perhaps, to use some of the communication networks they might have, and to recruit members, because a lot of pre-existing organizations have a lot of members who might be interested in working with you for your cause. So pre-existing organizations can be really important for taking a protest and causing it to spread much more rapidly than it could by itself. There are a couple of possible dangers or caveats to this. One is that there is a chance, if you work with pre-existing organizations, that they may want to try to co-opt your movement somehow for their own purposes or for their own agenda. So you do have to be careful about who you partner with and be clear about what your expectations are out of that partnership. Another possibility is that people in these pre-existing organizations may not be as committed to your cause as you are. And so thinking about how you can motivate people and inspire people to stay committed when they may not be as invested in your cause could be important for creating a lasting partnership with organizations. And then the third potential danger is a clash of cultures. So pre-existing organizations have their own practices, their own cultures, their own ways of doing things. And if you and other people who you're working with come into that organization with a different way of doing things, you may find that those ways don't always match up. So being clear with any organizations about what your practices will be and how both sides and both groups of people will have their cultures recognized is really important. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Like I said, I study religion and social movements, and in particular immigrant rights movements. And a lot of people in the past have organized through congregations. Things like the civil rights movement and a lot of other examples of movements that are very well known really got their start and were able to thrive by activists partnering with churches and synagogues and organizations where African Americans could meet and could meet freely without established powers and authorities interfering too much with their meetings and their plans. So having those churches already existing and partnering with them was really essential to the success of the civil rights movement. In my own work, I've studied the immigrant rights movement, and there's a couple of different examples, both Catholic churches in particular, but a lot of different types of churches and synagogues have been really important in organizing immigrants. A lot of Catholic churches were really essential to organizing some of the big immigrant rights marches that happened a few years back in Chicago and Los Angeles. So churches have been very important in that movement as well, but also other organizations like ethnic associations or hometown associations, which are groups where immigrants from a particular country, like Mexico, come to the United States and form an association with other people from their hometown so that they can continue their heritage and continue their culture in the United States. These are organizations that already existed, and then once people decided they wanted to try to do something to create immigration reform, they could work with these hometown associations to get their movement started. So those are a couple of examples of movements that you may be familiar with. In terms of what you might want to do to create change, if you notice that there's something in your community that you really want to change and you want to try to find partners, look online, look for other organizations that already exist in your community, and see where some commonalities might lie. So, for example, if you were really concerned about police violence against people of color in your community, you might look and see, are there already groups who are working on anti-racist issues? Are there groups that are working against police violence and working for accountability among the police? And are there ways that you can partner with them? And if there aren't groups that are working that closely to you, always falling back on organizations that are really established in the community can be a way to at least begin conversations with people. So going back to race again, looking for some predominantly African American congregations in your community, talking to them, they may have some shared interests with you, and seeing if you can partner with them is a great way to get started. But again, I recommend that you be very clear from the beginning about what your expectations are out of the partnership so that you can be sure that the cause that you're fighting for is the one that the movement is going to fight for.